The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Father Joseph's son. Hi, Father.
How are we doing?
Very well, thanks. And Victor Lambs. Hey, Victor.
Hi, Dom.
Folks, we wanted to remind you about some other shows that are on the network that you're sure to enjoy, including The Secrets of Doctor Who. You can find that wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/Doctor Who. So we wanted to jump right into today's topic. It's not the usual lighthearted fare that we're sometimes known for. This one is probably going to give you some bad dreams. We're going to talk about killer robots. That's right. There's been, of course, especially as the war in Ukraine has dragged on a little bit here over the past few months, we've seen how the application of some of this technology in warfare is kind of concerning. And this has been concerning some folks for a while, including the Pope and various other theologians at the Vatican, who are warning us about the potential problems related to autonomous lethal weapon systems or lethal autonomous weapon systems. They have an acronym. Everything has an acronym called LAWS. And so there's been this push to regulate or ban use of artificial intelligence and autonomous weapons. An autonomous weapon is one that can target and fire without having a human being sending the message. So, for example, the drones we have now, there's usually an operator somewhere in the Las Vegas desert outside of Las Vegas flying it remotely and pulling the trigger, whereas the autonomous weapon systems, they make the decision, this is my target, I'm going to attack it and destroy it. And that's the big difference. So just to get started with this, any thoughts in general about this topic, Victor or Father? What do you think?
I'm against it. Yeah, the only case I'd be for something like this is if we completely outsource the business of fighting wars to fully autonomous, drones and robots, and just leave the human beings out of it. Like maybe cordon off 5 square miles in the desert or something and let the drones fight it out, right? But yeah. No, I mean, it is, I mean, it's a terrifying prospect, and, by some miracle, we haven't been faced with, some horrible situation yet, resulting from, autonomous, drones or weapons of that sort. But, as they say, it's probably only a matter of time. Yeah.
How about you, Father? Initial thoughts on this?
I'm thinking of Doctor Who and the Cybermen.
Right.
You will be assimilated.
Yeah, Cybermen and the Borg. Well, and so you shared with me, Victor, a video that you came across on YouTube of somebody. Everyone, I think, remembers the Boston Dynamics robot dogs that they had a while ago. These dystopian dogs that can open doors and that sort of thing. Well, someone put a machine gun on it. Yep. That's right. They mounted a machine gun on it, and there's a picture. There's a video of it at in a shooting range, shooting targets with it. Now, this particular thing, video is not all that scary in the sense of it doesn't do a very good job of it, and it stands about 10 feet away from the target in order to hit it. But it's the promise of what's possible that is really scary. The idea that it might not be that hard to make the leap to something more scary than that. So, and then there was also another video or article about the fact that Ukraine, in its fighting against this much larger foe of Russia, has developed what someone called a mini Terminator it's a tracked ground robot equipped with a machine gun. Now, this is a little different in that it's remotely controlled, although it can do some autonomous things. But it has a machine gun, and it's got a cable that runs out the back of it to an operator, but it's more autonomous than previous things. So it does seem like the temptation is there for various people involved in warfare to start doing this, to start putting this stuff out there. Like I guess what I'm saying is all the tools are there, and now they're just going to start integrating them. So what can we do?
Yeah, the tools are there, and more importantly, the financial interest is there, on the part of, weapons manufacturers and stuff, and big tech who have been developing these AI systems and these semi-autonomous weapon systems, and to justify their research, to sell these to people who would be interested in having that. And, you could say, well, they would only be doing it, for legitimate governments. But once the technology is out there, it's out there. So it's kind of like landmines, which are kind of a passive version of these same kind of like semi-autonomous weapons. They just, sit there, and if you know where they are, you can avoid it, and other people can come in and pick up the landmines. But this is more kind of like an active, minefield waiting to happen, if you will.
Right. Imagine a minefield where the mines move around on their own and can target specific individuals. That's essentially what we have. And, they can be used against soldiers, but they can also be used against civilians. I mean, that's the scary thing. There's an article I'm going to put in the show notes from Catholic News Service talking about a discussion in 2021, several different discussions, including Pope Francis coming out and talking about the potential for these scary weapons systems, the autonomous weapon systems. And one of the folks involved said, basically, the bottom line is you can't outsource life and death decisions to a machine. And that applies in a lot of different areas of technology, medicine, regulation of food sources, all kinds of stuff. We cannot get into this mode where we think we can outsource decisions related to life and death to machines or machine learning algorithms or AI or whatever, however you want to phrase it. And that's the red line, I think, right? Am I in target with that? I mean, is this the red line, the one we should not cross?
I think we had this discussion a while back.
Yep.
Trying to remember which topic that was on, but where we were going into that discussion of AI and the fact that AI can't make those human decisions.
Right. Yeah, that's come up actually several times in our show. This question of AI and its implications in the fact that it is not capable or should not be capable of making these decisions because it does not have a moral sense. It's really its morality is whatever it's programmed to be to consider it. And yeah, like we had talked about this in relation to cars, autonomous vehicles, and how does
that's right.
an autonomous vehicle, when it's approaching a situation, the trolley problem, it's, swerve left and kill that person, swerve right and kill that person. Well, how does it decide? And the fact is it decides based on a criteria programmed into it. And that's not something that a machine should be left to decide. So there's another video I'm going to put in the show notes titled Slaughterbots. And this came out 5 years ago. And I remembered it when we started talking about this, and I just found it before we started. And it made a huge impact on me. And what it is, it's from this organization that is opposed to autonomous weapons. And it's done in a style that's like a documentary style, where it's like almost like a compilation of news broadcasts and people's FaceTime calls and some other things like that. And basically starts with a live stream from some like Apple like keynote of this weapons manufacturer that's showing off its new swarm bots. And it's basically they're mini drones, each carrying a small explosive that can be programmed to attack a specific target. And or based on either an individual or on criteria like race or sex or what kind of uniform they're wearing or that sort of thing. And what a wonderful revolution it is for destroying the evil bad guys. And then it switches to showing these headlines of the information leaks out onto the internet. Terrorists now have this data, and oh no, someone attacked the Capitol building, and 11 senators of one party are dead, and the others aren't, and who did this? And it just gets worse and worse and worse. Like the scenario escalates and escalates, and thousands of people are being slaughtered by Slaughterbots, these drones that swarm. At one point, the guy was like, we could drop 100,000 of these little drones out of the back of an airplane over a city, and we kill just the bad guys, the bad half of the city. Like, what? It's insane. But there are people who think like this.
I'm thinking of this if you combined it with, remember when we had Afghanistan and the data of the biometric data that got out.
Oh, that's right.
With Afghanistan. If you couple that together, that's a pretty scary moment to be in.
Right. What you're remembering is when we pulled out of Afghanistan, this database got left behind that contained all the biometric data on all of the Afghan people who helped the Americans, who were cooperating with the Americans and helping our mission there. And that's yeah, you're right. If combine that with these drones that could seek them out wherever they are, that's a pretty scary prospect. So the two different kinds of weapons we're talking about here, there's both weapons that can supposedly target individuals and weapons that are designed for mass effect. So you could, have like a smart bomb essentially that goes after and assassinate one person. But then you could have ones that are just drones that just swarm any person. They release them terrorists release this in the middle of a city, and hundreds of them go after people everywhere. Both are pretty scary. I don't think the problem here is just the drones that attack mass. Like, I think a drone an assassin drone is just as bad. What do you guys think? Am I off base?
Yeah, I mean, certainly it's, as a human individual, existentially, it seems a lot worse to be chased down or hunted by a drone versus, I mean, even, someone drops a nuke on a city, you don't take that personally necessarily, but if somebody's sending killer drones after you, that's I mean, a very upsetting prospect. And you have to wonder, what kind of countermeasures are there that would be effective against this? And, hopefully law enforcement has them, but, as a regular citizen, anything like, radio signal jammers or, laser, defense grids or whatever, those would be illegal for citizens to own. So, what effectively is your defense against like maybe a baseball bat, right? Like in the movies where they
build a mesh net over your home and don't leave.
Yeah. Faraday cage. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's an importance that we have a society that's built up that agrees on something, right? And it seems more and more, especially now that we're at odds with each other. And so that kind of puts a scary theme when we don't have that idea of solidarity in the world as much as we once did. The fact that we come to an agreement as countries that this is an area we shouldn't be going into.
Well, this is one of the pushbacks on the idea of an international ban on this sort of technology, which is, it's the usual one, which is, sure, the good countries will ban it, but other countries, rogue states, North Korea probably foremost among them on everybody's list, but even like maybe China and other ones like that will continue to develop it, even though there are international agreements against it, and that will leave us at their mercy. I mean, that's sort of it's the whole balance of terror, weapons of mass destruction argument again. But actually, as one person in the article, the Catholic News Service article points out, you have problems of verification and transparency. So how would you verify? Like, okay, we've agreed to ban this. Okay, no one's going to have killer drones. How do we verify that? That's you can't. This drones will still exist. AI will still exist. So the idea is you'd have to stumble upon one of these little killer drones somewhere, and that would have to be your proof.
I mean, how do we verify that there were weapons of mass destruction, right?
Well, nukes are easier. I mean, they're bigger. It takes a lot of infrastructure to build them, very specialized infrastructure. You can't just refine plutonium in your backyard, unless you're the radioactive Boy Scout, which is a whole nother thing. But so it takes some infrastructure. So it's hard to hide that sort of stuff. I mean, it's possible. We've seen that Israel has probably developed nukes, and North Korea may have developed nukes, but it's harder to hide that. With a killer drone, that'll fit a closet. You could put thousands of them. You know what I mean? It's a lot easier to build.
And you're right. It is something any like high school STEM class could build, right? And you're never going to criminalize, the ownership of Arduinos or Raspberry Pis or servo motors or the things that you would need to build something like this, So it is once the technology's out there, it just becomes so. It would be good, I think, to see more people, actively condemn this sort of thing. But again, you're right. It won't stop the bad actors from being bad.
Victor, you put another twist on it because we're talking about state actors is what we were immediately thinking about. But what about individuals?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's probably even scarier when you think of just individuals being terrorists or being stupid. And when that enters into society, that is a lot scarier than a state that you're going to have at least some form of government oversight of countries.
Right. I mean, just imagine the 21st century Unabomber, right? Ted Kaczynski was his reign of terror was with package bombs. He mailed them to scientists all over the country, and that killed or mutilated a lot of people. But think of a guy who just sends drones to random individuals he dislikes online, based on their social media profiles or whatever. The people who didn't swipe right on him on Tinder. I don't know. Is it swipe right? I don't know how Tinder works. I'm just assuming. I'm asking the wrong guys
the
here.
Wrong way.
Right? I'm asking a priest and another married guy my age, so probably you guys don't know either. But in any case, you swipe the wrong way, and this guy ends up sending a drone to you. I mean, it sounds scary, right? Or terrorist groups, ISIS or Al Qaeda or whatever the terrorist groups are. It sounds scary, and we can speak against it morally from till kingdom come, but the fact is that it might not necessarily protect us from this sort of thing. So maybe what we really need is countermeasures. We need our technologists to develop good countermeasures for this sort of thing of various kinds. I guess I get one of the things that when I think about too, though, is what does it mean for it to be an autonomous weapon? How independent does it have to be considered autonomous? We often have smart bombs, right? That the pilot of a plane designates a target on the ground, releases it, and flies away, and the bomb guides itself in. Is that an autonomous weapon? No, not to our conventional definition, but in some ways it resembles it. So we need to get better at identifying and defining some of these things too. What a world.
Yeah, I'd be interested too, and also hearing what our listeners have to say about this, because I know that there are going to be people who have a background in technology or the military and that sort of thing, and it would definitely be good to hear from them, because like I said, I don't have any answers on this. It's something that it's not going to keep me up at night, but on the other hand, it is another example of this new world that we're living in.
I think it's a testament to our law enforcement and intelligence communities that this has not been an issue in the United States yet.
Yeah.
Thank you to those hardworking men and women.
Yeah.
And I hope it doesn't. And prayers that it doesn't become an issue anywhere, because it's a bigger topic for technology in general, which is we keep reaching these red lines in various places, and where it's possible to do a thing now, but we shouldn't do the thing now. and we keep butting up against that. And nukes was one of those areas where we walked over that line. There are other areas where hopefully we can stay from going over that line.
Yeah, there's a lot of things those fine men and women do that we don't see and we don't know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I've known some people who worked in law enforcement of various kinds, and especially like including federal law enforcement who have said, it's been close several times. Let's just put it that way. Well, without revealing anything, we've been saved from bad things several times.
Well, thank you, Jack Bauer.
Yes.
For suffering so much for each 24 hours. All right, so let's now that we've given you that nightmare fuel, let's move on. I want to first thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the secrets of technology, including Esther R, Ron B, Damian M, Gene L, and Chad M. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the secrets of technology and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So our first headline that we're going to discuss is kind of a follow-up from a story we talked about recently. Speaking of AI, there was that Google engineer who claimed that their Lambda 2 AI had become sentient, and he publicized it, demanded that the AI be appointed an attorney to represent its interests, and so on and so forth. Well, Google suspended him initially, and by the way, it was interesting that some of his activism was based on his Christian beliefs. He believed that this AI had a soul now, and not conventional Catholic Christian belief, but he has an interesting Christian belief in that area. But anyway, it turns out Google has now fired him. Blake Lemoine is unemployed, and after they came right out and said, that this AI we do so many reviews of the AI to make sure we're being ethical, to make sure we're doing the right thing. We've had outside experts, and then a bunch of AI experts who aren't connected to Google at all have also come out and said, look, it's impossible for what this guy claims to be true. Given today's technology, we're nowhere near that point with AI technology, and so on and so forth. So what do y'all think of this Blake getting his walking papers?
I mean, he violated company policy. That's, I mean, that's that. But yeah, that's a pretty cut and dry, case right there. But yeah, I mean, it is a very interesting question. I haven't been following this one super closely, but I don't know what sort of, and there are papers and stuff that I'll read through and stuff, but what sort of review do they, I mean, it sounds so weird that we have to even think about this. It's like, yeah, so how do they determine if something that they've, created in a lab, artificial intelligence wise, has gained sentience, or what do they, what's their yardstick? How do they measure that? Mm-hmm. And would we trust them to come out and say, yes, we've created something sentient that now we have to, treat ethically, and we can't just keep, experimenting on it or something, if that's even possible. So would you trust a business, to come out and say that without some sort of, and who would you come in to do the review? Would it be like, priests, rabbis, philosophy professors, that sort of thing? Or would it just be artificial intelligence experts who say like, no, it's just code, and it's, it's like this kind of code. So it is an interesting question there.
I would be curious. I'd love to see what the panel is that how it's made up, because I think you should have philosophers and, religious experts and that sort of thing involved. I think that would be interesting. My guess is if it became sentient, somebody in the lab goes, click, hit the big red button, turn it off.
We're back to Cybermen.
Yeah,
exactly. Because most of the review that I've seen and like the articles say like, well, it's this kind of, program architecture and stuff. They're trying to just say, it's like other programs we've seen, so there's no way it could be sentient. But I mean, you're looking at it, you're just kind of asking like a biologist, is a dog sentient, and from the hardware, you might not be able to tell, mm-hmm. You'd have to, ask the dog a bunch of questions. and kind of make your determination from there. But yeah, so it is, would you trust, a software developer to make, quality of life decisions for an artificial intelligence that was potentially sentient? Right. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a toaster and stuff, right? But, I don't trust Google's ethicists to, make that sort of determination at some point in the future.
I mean, this gets to a philosophical question to begin with, right?
Like, what does it mean to be alive or sentient?
Yeah, what does it mean to be sentient? What does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to be human? Is it even possible for a computer to possess those qualities?
Right. And how much of Blake's attitude and the rest of our attitudes is shaped by science fiction too? Our expectations and, talking to the AI makes him think the movie Her, or whatever. It's like, yeah. But Father, you make a good point, which is that we have to examine our definitions, and that's an important part of this process. Is how do you determine whether something's sentient until you have a definition of what sentience is, and is it even possible for a computer?
Does sentience require a soul? That's the philosophical question I ask.
Right.
And if I say yes on that and it's the affirmative, then there's no possible way a computer program could be sentient.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, all living things have spirit. I mean, that was like if you go by the Thomistic definitions of things, and a computer can't have spirit, or can it? What is spirit then? I mean, do we? I'm not a philosopher or a theologian. I'll ask Jimmy Aiken that next time we have a weird question show and see what he says, because that would be
interesting to hear from him.
Yeah. Maybe we should do an episode on AI and just the AI sentience. In the past, he has been very clear that he doesn't believe that AI is alive. It's a sophisticated toaster, and that's about it. Like data as a toaster is his catchword when we're talking about Star Trek Next Generation. It's not alive.
The interesting question I would want to pose to him is, even walking it back a step, would you consider your dog sentient?
Oh, we did that episode recently.
Okay,
well, no, we didn't do exactly that question, but we did talk about do animals go to heaven? And that question, so that sort of comes close to a similar question. I don't think he would consider dogs to be sentient. Well, because that's really the question. What does sentient mean? Sentient means thinking. Dogs think, but I think we look at it as ordered thinking, higher order thinking. Self-conceptions, and that's a good point, actually. I mean, there are probably animals that are sentient. Dolphins are remarkably self-aware and clever. Other higher primates may also have a kind of sentience. So it's a good question. Do you have to be biological? Do you have to be made of meat to be sentient? These are some categories. I mean, frankly, I would love, again, the Vatican has had some discussions on this topic of AI and life. I would love to see more of this. It's a very important question to be answered.
Yeah, it's funny too, because back, when I was going to school, the whole thing was like, well, could a computer ever pass the Turing test, where, you have it, in a back room, you can't see if it's a person or a computer, and you're passing cards to it with questions, and it, it's passing cards back to you. And at the point where it becomes indistinguishable if you're talking to a computer or a person, that's when a computer has passed the Turing test, right? And then at that point, you ascribe, sentience or whatever else you want to it. But I think we've passed that like years ago.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in fact, Google demonstrated a few years ago at their I/O conference where they had the AI calling to make appointments for people, and it was really remarkable. I'm not sure it could have held a conversation, a spontaneous conversation about any topic at hand, and I think that's really the mark. It's it's indistinguishable within its parameters, but is it a free thinker? Is it able to delve into other topics as they come up? And that's really the mark of intelligence.
Whatever became of that, the Google AI thing, did they put the kibosh on that after the blowback?
It started talking to Blake Lemoine and they had to turn it off. I don't know.
No,
that's a good question. It was like a lot of tech companies, they demonstrate these technologies, and then there was pushback on it at the time because people felt like that was sort of deceptive to the person on the other end of the phone, that they think they're talking to a human being, that, ethically, should people be made aware that they're not talking to another human being in a conversation? Is that ethical? And I think those questions made Google kind of pause on, should we be doing this? The fact is there are unethical uses of this sort of speech technology in use where, sometimes you do end up talking to a bot or a computer, whether it's, on a website when you're looking for tech support, or on the phone. And, you're not sure whether it's a person or a machine. Sometimes it's a person really bored at their job who's not really responsive. But, it's so I think that these are questions that we're struggling with, is what's the red line? Where do we draw that line, and how do we approach the use of these technologies in our everyday life? It's a good question.
And I will put in a plug here for a 1981 science fiction book I read called Project Pope by Clifford Simak. And it's a book where it's far future. The Catholic Church is still around, but all the cardinals and priests and stuff are largely robots that have been created. And so they revere both God and man as their creator and stuff. And they're on a quest to create the most comprehensive and complete Pope that ever existed, and by collecting all the knowledge of the universe and putting it into this giant AI. And that's going to be the Pope for this robotic. And then they also have they're also searching for heaven as well, the robots are. So it's an interesting book if you like late 70s early 80s sci-fi.
Wow. That's trippy.
Yeah.
I don't want to read that. That's just scary.
It's pretty lighthearted and stuff. And there's theological debates between the cardinals and
wasn't there a robot pope in Futurama?
There was a robot pope in Futurama, and there's the papal mainframe in Doctor Who, and I have to think the papal mainframe came from this book in some way.
I forgot about that.
Yes, the army. You could be a colonel in the papal army, father son. So let's move on, as I think we've strayed from our topic there. Let's talk about Apple, because one of my favorite topics, and their new car software that they demonstrated at the Worldwide Developers Conference back in June. And at the time I said, this seems to me to be more than just Apple talking about an upgrade to CarPlay. This is Apple making a statement about what it sees as part of its future, which is to be in cars. And so this article from CNBC agrees and says Apple's new car software could be a Trojan horse into the automotive industry, where they say that a lot of these car companies are in a difficult position. Surveys show that most U.S. car buyers only want a car if it supports CarPlay. And meanwhile, do the car makers offer CarPlay and give up potential revenue and control over the look and feel of the car, the interface of the car, say, or do they develop their own infotainment software system and try to convince the consumers that no, ours is better? And meanwhile, there's a little thing out there that Apple is probably and definitely going to be developing its own car in the not too distant future as well. So what do y'all think of this interesting idea that this is Apple's Trojan horse into a new industry?
Yeah. So I work in the auto industry, and I have to preface this by saying that all opinions are my own. They don't represent the company I work for or anything, but it is a concern, generally in the industry, that especially as you move to electric vehicles and then ultimately autonomous vehicles, the vehicle itself becomes just pretty much a commodity. There's not a lot that differentiates one particular vehicle from another one. When you have, an electric powertrain, you have a certain number of seats in it. That's outside styling, maybe a little bit different, but pretty much the vehicle itself increasingly becomes a commodity. And so then what does differentiate your product is the experience that your customers have with the vehicle, as they, approach it inside the vehicle in particular, and that sort of thing. And so it is, Apple's definitely making a play to own that experience inside the vehicle with those customers. And that's where increasingly, the value to anybody making a vehicle, in terms of both revenue, the interactions with the customers, is going to be. So yeah, Apple doesn't need to make a vehicle of their own. If they can take over that customer experience inside the vehicle, they've, that's basically, they've won at that point. And so the challenge is, can automakers create a differentiated experience, while also integrating, CarPlay or Android Auto as well. And it's definitely a real challenge there. But people seem to really like the CarPlay experience, and it's very well integrated with their devices that they bring into the car. So where automakers can differentiate and get some of that experience back is how well does their own HMI or experience, integrate with the vehicle itself. Since they're the ones making the vehicle, their experience can it give access to other features in the vehicle that CarPlay can't, or are there other areas of the customer's life that it can interact with, a smart home or something like that. But it is a definitely a new challenge both for tech companies and automakers.
I'm going to be the negative Nancy here. 2 words: planned obsolescent. You go obsolete with a car just like you do with an iPhone. You're planning the updates. I'm no longer going to support the 2012 models now, right? It's been 10 years. And so all of a sudden, you're going to have features of a car that aren't supported anymore. And we get that problem that I have a car now that could probably have 100,000 more miles on it, but I have to trade it in because the software is not supported anymore.
Well, that actually, this brings to mind $18 car seat warmers from BMW, $18 a month. But this also brings to mind another story I read about on Twitter this week, which is sort of related about Tesla. So I'll try to tell it as quick as I can. So this guy bought a used Tesla. It was a Tesla Model S 90, I think is what he bought it as. It was a 2013. It had a couple owners before him, and the first owner bought it as a Tesla Model S 60. 60 and 90 are the designations for battery capacity. So the higher the number, the larger the battery capacity, the better the range. It's a more expensive feature, okay? So the first owner had a warranty problem with the battery pack. Tesla swapped it out, they took out the 60. All they had was a 90, so they put a 90 in, and they rebadged the car as a 90. I think this is the key aspect of it. So fast forward several years, this current owner now has it. He's like the third owner of the car. And he takes it in for a firmware upgrade or something, because this is what we do with cars now. And in the process, he gets a message from Tesla: we found a misconfiguration in your vehicle and have fixed it. They fixed it by changing it back to a Model 60. They've basically taken the range of the vehicle and cut it by a third. And just by a software update that they reached into the car while it was sitting in his driveway and turned it off. And he said, you can't do that. I want that back. I bought this car as a 90. It says 90 on it. You made it a 90. And they said, we'll give you back to you if you pay us $4,500. We sold that feature to the original owner, not to you. So we sold him a license to that ability. You need to buy a license for yourself. this is the crazy aspect of kind of what we're looking at with cars that are all about software more than they are about hardware, and that's one of the things. I think that's a bad finger shake wag at Tesla for that one, because I think the key here is they badged it a 90. They turned that car into a Model S 90, and so I don't think they can just turn around and walk that back. But regardless, it's an interesting look into a potential future in some ways.
Yeah, and that does bring up the whole concept of ownership versus, are you just leasing everything that you use, your home, your transportation, your entertainment, and it's a car, right? You buy a car, and the model in everybody's mind is that you own the features that the car has, right? And that they're not going to take things away from you. But yeah, I mean, that would definitely be a finger wag in that case. And hopefully there's a way to resolve it. But I can only imagine like the Kafka-esque nightmare you'd have to go through to talk to the right person to, and it's right there in the car too. I mean, so are we going to see people,
hackers,
hackers and citizen, heroes and stuff? Wouldn't necessarily call them heroes, but Robert De Niro's character in the movie Brazil, who, aren't supposed to be fixing people's air conditioner, but he'll, rappel down into your apartment and fix your air conditioner when no one else will, that sort of thing. Yeah. Again, you kind of look ahead to where these things are going, and you can kind of, either sign on or not, I suppose.
Yeah, it makes you long for the days when, shade your mechanic, you could, rebuild your carburetor, in your garage, and the car would just keep running forever as long as the mechanical pieces worked and you had access to more mechanical pieces. It's a different world. In fact, that Twitter thread was posted by a guy who's basically like a Tesla hacker. He hacks the vehicles on behalf of people who own them to fix things that Tesla won't fix or will charge an arm or leg to fix. And he says he could turn the feature back on, but Tesla could just turn it back off again. Like, unless you break something and thus lose other features, then, you're kind of stuck. So I don't know what this guy is eventually going to do. Is he going to pony up to 4,500 or just be happy with a shorter range? But it feels a little bit like Tesla's cutting off their nose to spite their face in this case. They don't lose anything by letting the guy have the longer range that he already had.
And at what point do you just give somebody the car for free, right, and then charge them the subscription for, ignition on off is $200 a month or something?
I mean, in a way, that's probably it's sort of what we did with phones for a while there, right? Phones were basically free, and they made it back on service, and we might be going there with cars. Like, you could pay $500 a month for a car, or you could be given a car and pay $200 a month for the license to drive it. That's. I'm not giving anyone any ideas. Don't do that. Oh man, let's move on. This is a real dystopian episode we're talking about here, but let's get to something that's really a good use of technology. All right,
this is happy. It's morphin' time.
Yeah.
Yes, it's morphin' time. Hasbro will put your face on a Power Ranger or Black Panther or Spider-Man or a Mandalorian for $60. That's right. Hasbro has a new product that they're coming out where they will 3D print your face onto an action figure of your choice, within a range of different action figures, of course. So that you could be a Ghostbuster, G.I. Joe, Star Wars, Marvel figure, Power Rangers. And this is they have this partnership with a company called Form Labs, which has figured out a way to scan and 3D print in mass quantities individual heads, essentially, individual body parts, but heads is what we're looking at here. So kind of cool. Is this something you guys would do?
Oh. What's our over under on Father Andrew Kinstetter purchasing the Boba Fett one?
I think it's 100%. I'm going to buy it for him. What are you kidding me? I want this is Father Andrew's Christmas present. He's definitely getting a Mandalorian with the Father Andrew head. That's for sure.
I was skeptical until I saw the Ghostbusters, and now somebody give me like $400 so I can make my whole family
It's
Ghostbusters. No, this is a really, really cool idea. And, $60 is probably about, right for a niche collectible product like this. When I was much younger, I collected G.I. Joe, the little 3 1/4 or 3.5 inch, however tall they were, the G.I. Joe figurines. And at one point they had a promotion where if you sent in like, so many G.I. Joe proofs of purchase, you could get a custom action figure. But of course it was an action figure that had a mask on over its head. And the only thing that was kind of custom was they would give you a special card that had the name you'd chosen and like, that the G.I. Joe's. And I thought that was like the coolest thing in the world when I was, I don't know how old I was, like 10 or 11. And so I don't want to show this to my younger kids because they're going through a Ghostbusters phase right now. But yeah, the faces, they look pretty cool. I think it'd be cooler if maybe they like cartooned them up a little bit more to make them, I don't know, look more action figure, but at that point you lose the resemblance. Yeah.
Does the Power Ranger one have the flipping head that morphs? Because that's the important thing for me.
Yeah. Well, did they come with the helmets? Like you can put it on over your head. That's
the figurines back when they had the Power Ranger action figures. The belt buckle was a button, and you hit it, and its head flipped.
Right. The head would flip around. Yeah. It looks like you can be like from Star Wars, you can be a Mandalorian, a Stormtrooper, an X-Wing pilot, or Rebel Princess. I don't know if that's all of the options or they're just the ones they showed in this particular graphic, but there's also Black Panther, Black Widow, Spider-Man, Iron Man, 2 different Ghostbusters, and then G.I. Joe, Snake Eyes, and Scarlet, which is interesting that we don't have any actual Joes. We have the bad guys, right? And then
Snake Eyes is good, I think, right?
Is he the guy?
It was the white ninja. Storm Shadow, right? Was bad. I think Scarlet was good as well. Yeah,
I have to admit my ignorance because I missed the G.I. Joe generation there, but for myself. But in any case, they do the head and the hair separately, which is interesting. So they'll model your hair or lack thereof for some of us. And can it be cheaper then? That's actually an interesting question.
I want a discount. Yeah, knock $5 off.
I want to be Mace Windu.
Privilege.
Yeah, man, it's real. And I would love to see these 3D printers at work here because they have a picture in the article we're going to share where it shows it's the print head's got like a whole bunch of them on it, and let's get a bunch of the things with the hair on it and the various the creepy strands that the 3D printers have to make in order to support the print. You take a look at it and see what I mean. It looks kind of like a horror movie until they clean it up.
And I guess you could make dolls of anyone, right? That's the other thing too, is I suppose you could make a Black Widow that looked like anybody
We're
wanted.
going into an episode of Big Bang Theory now, if you watch that.
Oh, is it? No, I haven't seen it.
Well, the key here is you have to scan your face using the Hasbro app.
Okay.
So you have to have a special selfie series account, and you have to do the 3D mapping using the camera, which use the LiDAR and stuff. I forget what it's called. It's not technically photogrammetry because we actually got corrected on that. Thank you for that correction for the listener who corrected us. But it's not technically photogrammetry, but it's that idea of using LiDAR and the various sensors to map a 3D map of your head, and then you upload it. So maybe, if you wanted to get one for your wife and as a surprise, you do it while she's sleeping, which would be really creepy. So maybe that's enough of a way to keep it from.
We're not condoning that.
No, don't do that. But yeah, it would be hard to do it as like a surprise for your kids. Hey, sit still. I'm gonna scan you. Don't ask why. But we'll see how that goes. Anyway, it starts in September, I think, is what they said, and so you'll be able to drop your $60 plus tax.
Right in time for my birthday.
There you go. Me too. So In our last headline is this one that you shared, Father. And I've seen it everywhere now. Everybody's sharing it. Chess robot in Russia broke a 7-year-old's finger during a tournament. Like, talk about dystopian autonomous vehicle weapons. No, what this is there was a tournament, and there's a lot of these tournaments. They had a gimmick of what it turned out to be an industrial robot. This is, the type of thing you see them building cars with, that sort of thing. And it was playing chess against 3 opponents at once, including this 7-year-old. And in the midst of a turn, the kid reached in to touch his piece, and the robot didn't reach out for him. It was in the middle of doing something, grabbed his finger, and he ended up breaking the kid's finger. And the kid continued playing, so, power to him. Yeah. That's some tough Russian kids. So what do y'all think of this dystopian Russian killer chess robots? Which is,
Chewbacca doesn't like losing.
Not wise to lose to a Wookiee.
Yes.
Or yeah.
Don't beat a Wookiee, yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things the article talks about is that when they have these sort of robotic chess playing robots, they're supposed to have sensors to sense when someone enters into the workspace of the robot. This one didn't. And so they said it's a bit, it was kind of irresponsible of the people operating the robot in the first place.
I'm also wondering the responsibility of, generally we talk about operating machinery, and I would consider this operating machinery. And so in a real way, you are having a 7-year-old operate a piece of machinery. And so there's a lot of irresponsibility in that of the people who are putting on that tournament to begin with, that a 7-year-old is doing that.
Yeah. I mean, they said the kid violated the safety rules. He wasn't supposed to. Did you know 7-year-olds? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Don't walk over the edge of the cliff. Okay. Okay, Daddy.
I mean, in the same way you could say a 7-year-old violated the safety procedures of a lawnmower.
Or pistol. Right. You don't let them play with it.
Yeah. I guess it comes down to, like, did his parents sign a waiver, right? But
probably.
No, probably different civil.
Russia.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, Russia. It's like, yeah.
In Soviet Russia.
A shot of vodka.
In Soviet Union, robots play you.
Yeah.
Cueing all your Yakov Shmurov jokes.
Yeah. In America, you knock over chess pieces. In Soviet Russia, chess robot knock over you. Yeah.
And cue all our terrible Russian accents.
Yeah.
So the big thing is that, yeah, the kid apparently violated the safety rules, but the fact is as the article says, robots should not operate blind. That's just not a thing.
It was pretty shady, whatever,
Yeah. It's the funny thing is that this got huge play all over the world because it's, robot breaks 7-year-old's finger. That's just going to get all kinds of play. But the fact is, it's a fairly mundane story about an industrial accident, essentially.
Yeah. I got my fingers slammed in, sliding van doors, in the 80s. And,
yes.
Yeah. I mean, you don't see that as front page news, like car eats finger or something, but yeah.
Yeah. Mom drives off with the kid's finger in the door.
What about the auto shutting doors though?
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Do they, I don't have the auto shutting doors, but are they sensitive enough to stop when there's a finger in the door?
I'm going to guess there's some sort of sensor.
I would hope so.
Your garage doors have those sensors in them. I'm going to guess there's some sort of sensor. If we have a soccer mom listening, they can let us know.
Yeah. I'm going to guess the early ones didn't. All right. Those are our headlines this week. Let's move on to our picks of the week. And Victor, you are up first.
Yeah. So we have Nintendo Switch is in our house. And anybody who's used a Nintendo Switch for any period of time knows that the joysticks in the Joy-Con, the little controllers that come bundled with the Nintendo Switch, eventually will start to, and this is after, hundreds of hours of playing with them. But if you have kids, you get to that pretty quickly.
A weekend.
Yeah. they'll start to drift, and it just has to do with the taking apart enough of them. Inside there's a couple sensors or little analog switches or dials inside of them, and they the ones in there, because there's so much stuff packed into a Joy-Con, like infrared sensors, motion sensors, accelerometers, and near field communications things, they'll eventually start to go bad. And you can send them to Nintendo, and they're pretty prompt about fixing them and sending them back, or you can buy new ones, which is very cost prohibitive. But there are kits on Amazon where for around $5 per joystick, or sometimes even a little less, they'll send you a kit with replacement joysticks, and then all the tools that you need to open up your little controller and take out the one that's in there. And there's just a couple little ribbon connectors that you disconnect and pop them in and stuff. But what's really cool about these kits, at least to me, is the tools that come with them, because you get some pretty cool Phillips screwdrivers and little special triangle head screwdrivers and sponger tools and stuff. So it's a fun project to do with the kids. It takes about 10 minutes, but if you do have a Nintendo Switch and your controllers are your characters just kind of walking off in a random direction on their own in Animal Crossing or whatever, you can usually replace the joysticks. They don't last as long as the Nintendo branded ones, so in every couple hundred hours or whatever, you might be replacing them. But for $5 a replacement, it's not a big deal usually.
Did Nintendo actually make the Switch that it was easily repairable, or is it a
the controllers are, I mean, it's 3 screws to get the case off, then a couple more screws, and you can take the battery out of the controllers and just kind of disassemble it layer by layer. The Switch itself, if I needed to replace a battery or a screen on it, you can do it. There are replacement screens that you can buy, but it's a little bit more of an ordeal.
I like the pictures they used to illustrate the Amazon on Amazon. It's like, was someone chewing on the Joy-Con?
I didn't even see those.
It's damaged. You have to replace them now. It's like, gosh, what are you doing to the thing?
Yeah.
Maybe the dog got it or something. Anyway, that's good. Actually, I love the idea of a little bit of do it yourself, and also saving some money and not having to send it off to Nintendo, and a nice project to do with the kids. Very good idea. Awesome. All right, Father Joseph, you're next. What is your pick this week?
Well, my pick of the week kind of has to do with moving recently. I'm at a new set of parishes now. And as moving into the rectory, it's an older house, so we've been slowly replacing old light switches, old outlets, all of that stuff. And came across the Lutron Caseta, I think is how it's pronounced.
Yeah.
And it's a smart light switches, basically. And so there's a hub that you hook up to your router as the main piece. And then the switches, I think you can do up to like 90 switches or something on one hub.
Yeah.
And so the one that I linked the kit comes with your hub and two dimmer switches. I think in our house right now, the pastor had set it up a little bit before I was there, but I've helped him add on to it a little bit. And I think we have about 20 switches running on it right now. And
nice.
Works real well, easy setup. The switches themselves do not rely on Wi-Fi. They rely on some different radio communication that they do to the hub.
Yeah.
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 And so that's nice, because you're not relying on internet connection for those switches to work with the hub.
Right.
And so if your internet goes down, your switches aren't completely out. And also, so I've been very impressed with it. The tie-in with Alexa is a little wanting.
A lot of that smart home stuff with Alexa is sometimes a little iffy, but it does work with Alexa and Google Home and HomeKit, so that's nice. If I were to do my smart home stuff over again, I would probably do this instead of the bulbs, Because that's basically the two ways you can go with smart home lighting. You can either have smart bulbs or smart switches. And the thing is with the smart bulbs, you end up putting smart switches, like the remote controls everywhere anyway. But I would have, if I could do it again, I would go with the cassetta switches, because it's a much simpler situation, and you don't have to train people to, now be sure not to switch off the wall switch. Make sure you only do the special switch and all that other stuff. This way, it's just, people know how to work a wall switch, and that's,
And also what's nice about these is they can turn your single pole switches into dimmer switches. Yeah. So you don't need to have a special dimmer switch for it to work. Right. The one problem I have had, and one that if you're not skilled with electrical work, you might have to have an electrician do, is if you have a lot of three-way switches, turning those to single pole can sometimes be a little more complicated than just two wires.
Yeah. It also works for older homes because it doesn't require a neutral wire like a lot
That's
of
correct.
Homes.
That's cool. Yeah.
And the box is just the size for the older homes. Ours is a 1960 build, and it fits inside those smaller boxes. It's snug, but it does fit.
That's good.
Yeah, I use much cheaper Z-Wave switches because I have a SmartThings Z-Wave hub, and it does require a neutral wire, so you have to have the white wire, and the switches themselves are a little bulkier, and so you're like, get in there. But I've had no issues with them. But if I was starting from scratch, even though it's a proprietary system, Lutron's a really good brand, with a really good history of lighting and stuff. So
looking into the proprietary thing, spoiler for future pick, but I have to play with a little bit. There's an open source project that runs on Raspberry Pi called Home Assistant.
Oh, I have that. Yep.
And it can tie all those in. So I'm going to play with that a little bit over the next couple months and see if I can get those proprietary things to go together.
Have you played around with Node-RED yet?
No, I have not.
You are going to probably lose many, many hours of your life, and not in a bad way, to Node-RED, because one of the things that runs Node-RED is a visual object-oriented kind of scripting environment for automation, and it runs within Home Assistant on your Raspberry Pi. So you go to the web interface for Home Assistant, you go to your Node-RED tab, and basically all of your switches and stuff are little nodes that you can connect and then wire up with like little conditional statements, and it's all visual and you can move it around and stuff. And there's a project that a bunch of French people are doing to create their own spinning version of the original Stargate, life size, lights up, spins and everything. And I noticed in one of their live streams as they're building it that they're using Node-RED to do all of the scripting for it and stuff. So very powerful. Yeah, if I had time, I would. Yeah, it's very cool.
I think with the next year, because there's big stuff coming in smart home automation this fall with the release of Matter, which is a new protocol that interoperates among all the big ones. But we need to revisit smart home tech again. We did an episode on smart home tech a while ago, and I think it's time to come back and look at it and see how things have changed and what sort of things are doing. I have a future pick of the week that came in the mail today that I'll talk about, which is from Akara, which is a great inexpensive set of stuff, but I'm doing some fun stuff with that. Sensors I'll just give you a sneak peek. Sensors.
And just to make this small disclaimer when talking about light switches, as a podcast, we do not recommend doing your own electrical work.
Do not do your own electrical work. That is for sure. All right. My pick of the week is another one of my little Mac menu bar items. And this is the Mac menu bar item to end them all. In fact, it's a little bit of meta. It's a Mac menu bar control. It's called Bartender. Bartender 4 is the latest version of it, and what it does is it couple things it does, but the basic thing it does is it cleans up your menu bar, especially if you're on a smaller computer like a MacBook. You've only got so much menu bar space, and all those little programs that end up in the menu bar, starting from the right and heading to the left, they end up clogging the whole thing up, and then you open up an app and it's got, you know, all the stuff coming from the left, and they collide the middle, and you start losing stuff and you can't access your things. Well, what this does is it allows you to set up so that there are a couple different interfaces that you can do. You can either have it drop down or hide things. And so it will hide some or all of the menu bar items. I do some until you hover above it. And I have a 27-inch screen with in front of me here. And when I hover over it, Bartender reveals it literally goes all the way across. Like it's the entire menu bar is filled with little icons for all the programs I'm running. Yeah, I know I have a problem. So but it's really useful like that. And it also does a few other things. Like, for example, if an app is active and needs your attention, you can have it set to pop up onto if it's usually hidden, it pops up to reveal it as it needs to get your attention, that sort of thing. So Bartender 4, if you are a subscriber to SetApp, which is the software, it's sort of like Netflix for Mac software. If you are a subscriber to SetApp, it's in there, or you can buy it for $16 outright.
Now, does it play well with the notch in the MacBook Air screen?
Yes, in fact, it has special notch features where it will go around the notch or drop stuff under the notch as you desire. So it does.
That's cool. That's cool.
As soon as the notch showed up, the programmer got to work, and like very soon he had a beta of the you working with the notch. So definitely. He's on top of things. So it's one of those things. There's a handful of pieces of software that I cannot live without on my Mac, and this is one of them. It's fantastic.
I like how it's wearing a tuxedo.
Yes, it goes along with my other app, which is Alfred. So, you know, although it does kind of look like the bartender
apps, yeah.
The bartender in the Outlook Hotel in The Shining. It's got a little bit of that going on. So that's a little creepy.
I might have to add this to my other essential of Magnet.
Oh, yes. There are a couple Windows. I use a couple different window management apps, but yeah, I know Magnet as well. Excellent. So that does it for us. We would love to hear what you think of any part of our discussion tonight. It's including on the killer robot thing. I'd love to hear, especially from those of you who have experience with AI or military or anything like in those areas. We would love to hear from you. You can comment on the show at sqpn.com/technology or the StarQuest Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Send an email to technology@sqpn.com. or visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord. You'll find links from our discussion and our picks of the week on our show notes at sqpn.com. It really helps us a lot when you write a review in Apple Podcasts or wherever you can at any of the podcast directories, and to share the podcast with your friends. That helps us grow our community and reach more listeners. We'd like to thank James for his research assistance in this episode. And until next time, Victor Lambs, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of technology.
Thanks, Tom.
Father Josephson, thank you as well.
You will be assimilated.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.